Hello, I'm Juliana, and today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up in my April TBR. So first up, I read Girl Talk by Katie Zapiri. So Katie is a Canadian. She went to my high school, actually, and she started this whole foundation called Make Your Mark, which is kind of a girls' empowerment. And I figured that with March 8th being International Women's Day, I better give this one a try. And it's actually autographed by Katie herself. Hold on. And it came with a little note from her because I pre-ordered it at her event, which was Girl Talk Empowerment Day. It came with a little customized note to me, which I thought was so cute and I loved it. And I felt guilty that I hadn't got to it, so I thought with International Women's Day coming up that it would be a great idea to finally get to this one. The next book I read this month was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. One of those two. I feel really bad about not being able to pronounce authors' names, but this book is about a young girl named Aubrey. She's 17, I believe, and it takes place in Victorian London, where her uncle is is the word lobotomist back then? I'm forgetting the terminology, but basically he helps solve murders. He does the surgeries on dead bodies after they passed away to help conclude their cause of death and things like that. And her dad really doesn't want her getting involved with her uncle. They have a rough relationship, and there's this murderer going around brutally killing these women, and her uncle's apprentice, Thomas, are all trying to figure out the murders together. And there's romance, and it's a great mystery, a great thriller. It makes you think that you know where the story is going, and then it switches it up. Like the whole book, obviously, you know that there's a killer. She's stalking Jack the Ripper, one of the most infamous killers in history, and you're trying to figure out the whole way, who is Jack, who is Jack, who is Jack, and these people keep coming to your brain, and you're like, is it them? Is it not them? Does that seem too obvious? And it's really fun read. I really enjoyed it, and as much as Aubrey could be a little frustrating at times, she was really an empowered character, and I really, really enjoyed this book. The next book I read is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and holy crap, guys, this book was so good. Book Talk will be up any day now discussing my thoughts on this book. It was absolutely amazing. It's the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas, so I can't say too much without spoiling you guys. But if you read the first book and you're like, I don't know, it wasn't really for me, read this book because it is so much better. I mean, the first book was good, but this book was, wow, it was just crazy good. So make sure you guys check it out. And the last book I read this month in March was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a book like nothing I've ever read before. I mean, I read Love Rosie, which is emails and little notes being passed back and forth, but this is a whole new level of crazy cool. First of all, can we talk about how sick this cover is and how the dust jacket, like, what? It's so cool. And it's about basically this planet which gets attacked by a company, and they're running from the company's fleets who are trying to destroy them before any other planets can find out what this company did to them. And it sounds, the impression I'm getting from it, because I've not actually done it yet, but it's not April 1st yet, so don't hate me, I have like about 100 pages left. But the impression I'm getting from this is that there's a group called the Illuminae group, and someone asked them to look into everything that happened in a certain span of time following certain people. And they did, and they sent all relevant files, and it's so interesting, so cool, and it's just wow. It was really confusing going into it at first, but once you kind of understand how the story is being told and the format that it's being told in, it's so unique and cool and like nothing I'd ever read before, and so far it's really, really good. So before I tell you about the books I'm planning on reading in April, first I'm going to pull my challenge from the TBR jar. So I saw Caddy Tastic do this 2 years ago, and I did it with her, but I fell into a book slump last year and I didn't do it. And this year I thought that it would be a fun little thing to bring up. Some of them are the same from her original, so you guys can make sure to check that out. I will link it down below in the description. And some of these are my own because I didn't feel like necessarily doing one of the things that she did. So for last month, mine was to read a 2017 debut, but it was February, so I did a 2016 debut, which was Stalking Jack the Ripper. And this month it was read a book that someone else picks out for you, and my sister picked out Illuminate for me. So let's see what it is this month. Oh my god. So my challenge for this month is read a book with 500 plus pages. To fulfill my challenge for the month of April, I'm going to be reading Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld. So part of the reason that I started a booktube channel, other than my passion for reading, which I've had since kindergarten, was that I also want to be an author one day. It's something I aspire to do, and while I'm not naive, I know that it's not the most stable career to do full-time at first. I want to get into the publishing industry, and I know this book tells both the story and how the story goes about being published. I don't know if it'll have what I'm looking for, but I've been thinking about this book a lot lately, and I haven't read any of Scott Westerfeld's books yet, and I know a lot of people really enjoyed his other series, the Ugly series, so I definitely want to get to this one, and it is like 592 pages, so I'm excited. The next book I'm planning on reading this month is the second book in the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series, Magnus Chase and the Hammer of Thor. I read the first Magnus Chase book when I was trying to push my way out of a reading slump last September or October, and it was really, really good, but I just wasn't in the mood to pick this one up right away when it came out, and I was still trying to get back into reading at the time. But now I have been missing Rick's other books with Percy, and I know that maybe possibly we'll see some Annabeth because reasons in this book. Actually, it's not even a spoiler. His last name is Chase. He's related to Annabeth. But I really enjoyed the series, and I really enjoy mythology, and the first book was really interesting with Norse mythology. I'd never really looked into or studied Norse mythology before, so I want to give this one a read and catch up on the series before the next book comes out later this year, I believe. The next book I will be reading this month that I have been meaning to read forever is Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs, which is the third and final book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. So I have so much guilt for not finishing this book yet. I picked up the first two books over a year ago, and I marathoned them, and as soon as this one came out, I got it. I got the box set, actually, because I didn't own them. I borrowed them from a friend, and I didn't get to it right away. I got this, I think I finished Hollow City 2 months before this came out, and once again, I was in my slump, and I just never got to it. And I tried to pick it up again, and then I kind of forgot about the characters. But now that the movie for Miss Peregrine's is out, I kind of caught myself up with the first book by reading that, and I've been watching some book reviews on Hollow City to revive my memory with that. So I definitely want to finish this series because I've heard that the finale is really, really good, and it was such an interesting series when I was reading it, and yeah. And finally, the last book I am planning on reading this month, though I don't have it with me, is 1984 by George Orwell. So I read Animal Farm 2 years ago for the TBR Challenge with a Read a Classic, as I'd heard a lot about it from a fellow Canadian booktuber. You probably know who she is, Ariel Bassett. She never stops talking about George Orwell, but I had heard a lot about 1984. I know that at my school personally we don't read it at any point, and it's one of those classics that everyone should read. From what I've heard from people, I've heard it's really creepy and mysterious, and I guess that's kind of my theme for the month, because Library of Souls, I don't know, I really wanted to read it. I hadn't read it before, and I don't have English this semester, and I really kind of want to immerse myself more in classics, so I'll be reading 1984 by George Orwell. So that is all for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any book recommendations for next month, or even if I finish my books early this month, please feel free to let me know. I'm always looking for new recommendations. I mean, my TBR pile is already huge, but you know, I really want to be able to connect with you guys over books that you have a love for. So make sure to let me know. I love you guys so much, and I thank you for your support. Bye, guys.